My dad is a physicist, and now he's a quantum physicist. He taught for quite some time, and then he transitioned into the health field. So now he's also a medical expert, but more to do with behavioral sciences.
Dad is like, he's a genius per se. You moved in faith. What triggered that, and how important is it for any entrepreneur watching this once you have an idea to literally move in faith?
When you have an idea, even if it's come to you and it's in your mind, and your mind is a spirit basically, someone can come and run away with it.
True.
If you sit down with it. Even if it's in the backdrop, every day or every week revisit it and fine tune it without being too much of a second guess.
Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Business. My name is Ian Dennis, and as always, each and every week we have a very interesting show lined up, and today it's no different. But before I get to introduce my interesting guest, I want to remind you that you're here at the Capital Club, the place you need to be as an entrepreneur. One thing you always say is that your network is your net worth, and being part of the club, you have an access to a huge and a very, very rich net worth. So I'll just encourage all of you guys to join the Capital Club. As you can also see today, I'm dressed sharply as always, and this is courtesy of Lugo Collections. Primarily, they have the best and the finest suits. When I wear these suits, actually last week, just a story, quote unquote, I went for a big interview, but because I had a Lugo suit, my goodness, the interview went so well. So grab yourself some Lugo Collections, because when you dress in them, you'll actually feel very confident, as I am. And also, just finally, I want to remind you that two of my books, Food for Thought and Business Conquest, are actually out, and go grab yourself a copy. The conversation I'm about to have right now, it's a very interesting conversation, and we're going to go into different ways. It's about an entrepreneur respect so much, who's actually been successful in the corporate world, has come into the entrepreneurship world, and also been as successful. Now, I'm talking about none other than the CEO and the founder of Fava, Francisca. Welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Looking all lovely.
Thank you so much.
What's the secret behind the green today?
Really nothing, to be honest. Nothing, it's just grace. That's the secret.
All right.
Yes, yeah.
The first question I like starting most of my conversations with is, what exactly are you most grateful for today?
I'm really grateful for the grace to live, and I'm grateful for the coverage of God over my life and over the businesses and my family. And I'm also really grateful to you and KTN to be here.
Thank you so much for having accepted our invite. I know we just ambushed you. But thanks, it's very, very gracious for you to have here.
It's okay.
You've mentioned that you're grateful for God for covering your business, and it speaks to the question of spirituality and business. How important is it, this particular combination? Because most of the entrepreneurs usually overlook this.
I think walking with God is quite important. It's been an important aspect of, let's say, starting this business. To be honest, actually, the inspiration to start Fava came mid-flight. I was actually going to visit my family, and I was wondering, what am I supposed to do, or what's my contribution to this world? And then I just took a piece of paper, and inspiration started flowing in on setting up a business that would be, let's say, bring out organic products to the market, and also act as a segue between African farmers and the global markets. So it's through that inspiration that then I asked the Lord, like, what am I supposed to name this business, and how am I supposed to walk? So I took the initial steps, and the moment I landed to see my family, I actually registered the company in faith, never knowing how I'm actually going to start, how I'm going to build up on it, how it's going to actually be funded. So spirituality, particularly my faith in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and God the Father, has helped me walk through the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Because through that, I get to know the kind of products to bring in. I get to know actually the countries to visit, the farmers to liaise with, the commodities to push out to the market, and then also, let's say, the brands for finished goods that we need to, let's say, buy their products and bring out to the market. Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing that you mentioned, that you had the inspiration and then immediately moved out of it. How important is it for one to move to action after getting an inspiration? Because most entrepreneurs usually have an idea and then they've sat on it for so long. You moved in faith. What triggered that? And how important is it for any entrepreneur watching this once you have an idea to literally move in faith?
I think it's very important to not allow an idea lie dormant, because once it's already come to your thought, it's always just someone who's supposed to, like, let's say, run with it. I can give an example. When I was younger, and the flu season would come in the fall season.
Yeah.
I used to say, what if, like, we had these I don't want to mention a specific brand, but okay, I'll just say Kleenex.
Yes.
What if we have this Kleenex that you wipe your nose with, and then it has like this Vicks that moisturizes your nose, that it does not peel out? Then I was quite young, so I thought, like, you know what, I'm young, I'm still in school, so no one's going to fund that and patenting and stuff like that. Fast forward to just 3 years later, Kleenex and Vicks had partnered, and they brought out wet tissues that actually moisturize your nose. So you see, that's when I actually learned that when you have an idea, even if it's come to you and it's in your mind, and your mind is a spirit basically, someone can come and run away with it.
True.
If you sit down with it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's good to take time to think, but don't think too long. It's good to take time to think, but sometimes if you think, you can actually overthink and underestimate yourself, and look at all the limiting factors in your background and say, you know what, I can't run with this thing right now, and these are all my reasons. Yes. Oh, I don't have the right money, or if I go to my parents, they'll think maybe I'm crazy or this. So even if you have to brood on an idea, do not wait for too long to capture it and run with it. It's just important, like, even if it's in the backdrop, every day or every week revisit it and fine tune it without being too much of a second guess. Yeah.
Interesting. And you've mentioned something about this idea you had when you were younger, or you experienced this, what's it called, and had these particular ideas. Just take me through your earlier years and some of the influences that maybe when you look back into retrospect primarily got you to where you are today.
Well, you know, my early years, my parents actually noticed that I used to love business, because when schools closed, I used to make popsicles and sell those. I would look at what could be in need when we have like school holidays, and then I would now, if it's like a national holiday, I would pitch my tent out and then see like if someone would come. And I used to just actually literally just stand by the road in faith. And I think God used to just have mercy on my intentions. So he would actually send people to come my way and actually purchase. So that quite encouraged me a lot. From then on, my parents were able to actually spot the fact that you know, I'm interested in business and the conversion of products into monetary value. So I remember one time I did the popsicle thing. Then
just to make popsicles at home.
Yes, and sell to friends when it's hot. So you run around, you're thirsty, and you need something sweet, you just come to me.
You have the solution with you.
Right next to me. So we'd not have to wait to go to the grocery store to try and grab those, because they were very expensive. So I also priced it quite well. And I used natural material, fruits actually, to make the fruitsicles. So when my parents spotted this, I remember my late mom had a conversation and said, I've seen you like business, so when you graduate out of high school, I'm going to sponsor you and give you like $1,000 as capital investments towards your business. Of course, that did not materialize because she passed on. So now, my dad also seeing this, he encouraged me also to actually go to business school so that I could learn how to manage finances, grow investments, and how to, let's say, hedge against risks and stuff like that. So that's how I ended up doing my postgraduate in investment management. Now, he actually supported me when I was transitioning out of the corporate space. So at some point after Fava, the genesis of Fava had happened, and I needed some capital to actually just widen widen myself. He injected his capital into the business. So he came and honored the promise that they made to me when I was quite young. So that's actually the early stages and how, you know, those gifts used to manifest.
And both your parents, was any in business, or what were they up to, and some of the influences maybe you picked from them growing up?
So I just remember my parents having, like, when we were quite young, very, very young, they had like a shop. I think both of them had they had their own jobs.
Yeah.
My dad is a physicist, and now he's a quantum physicist. He taught for quite some time, and then he transitioned into the health field. So now he's also a medical expert, but more to do with behavioral sciences. So, and my mom was also into the financial sector and administrative sector as well. So, but I used to see them having like a, you know, a shop that they were running. But
so they're running their careers and still running the shop?
Yes, yeah, but I think basically maybe not having the right kind of people to run it, or maybe the time they needed, because our family was also quite young. So I don't think they got enough time to invest their technical know-how into it. So they folded it up. But I think the thing to do with doing business has just always been innate in me. That's what I think, actually. Yes, yeah.
And your parents, did they grow up in Kenya and then they moved abroad? And then how was it? How was the setting like? What was it called? Was it majorly, was it here in Kenya? Was it abroad? Where was most of your influences early on? Yeah,
all the influences, I would say that majority of them also came from the outside. And my mother was actually born in Uganda to a Ugandan mother as well, Francisca, the late Francisca. And then I just know that her dad served in the King's Rifle or King's Army in Egypt. But the story of their life is normally so much clouded in a lot of mystery, because Francisca died young, and so when I ask my Ugandan side, they normally just remember her and the little babies, her other two sisters that she actually had. And then also not spending so much time in that aspect with that side of the family, I would not know much. But I would say that a lot of the influence that they received was also quite continental within Africa. Yes, yeah. My grandfather was, he worked for the government, he was a civil servant. And then he was a passionate person in terms of supporting people to get education. Even when he had an early retirement and went back to his village, he was really passionate about driving education. So that also impacted my father, because all of them, the excellence was demanded of him and his four brothers. Yes, yeah. So even my uncles, they were quite in that environment of excellence as well. Yeah.
And there's something that you mentioned. Dad is a quantum physicist. Mom was in, in the financial sector. What are some of the lessons you learned from both of them? Because I always believe that your parents always have an influence in terms of who you are and some of the nuances that you have as an individual. What can you say are some of the lessons you learned from both of them? Because Dad is like, he's a genius per se.
You know, actually, the first and most important normative lesson I learned in actually my formative years was the reverence of God. They placed God above everything and above everyone. My dad has always been that person, was always that person who has always been present in church and also holding service capacities, maybe as the financial person or... So you see that drawing us to the place of worship all the time. Made us know, inculcated that idea that God is above all at all the time. My mom was also quite spiritual. I remember she used to speak great things into us. And so as a leader, you see, automatically your parents are your leaders. Those are the first leaders God gives you. That's the first government God places you under. So for her, she used to, I remember like, would prepare to go to school and she would hold me or my siblings and say, you're a great person and you will go far in life and you're meant for really, really great things, and do not ever think less of you. So I learned also how to speak to people, especially even just people I work with. I always I learned how to see greatness as opposed to, let's say, the inherent weaknesses that you can use to bash someone. Also, thirdly, you know, being in physics, I don't know about all other physicists, but you know, a lot of physics is normally a bit weird and peculiar. You know, when you think of black holes and all those. And so I used to ask my dad, like, you know, which theory does he believe? Big Bang?
There's so many theories.
Evolution
and all
or
that.
Creation. For him, it's God. God, everything transcends from the God of the universe. And another thing I've learned from that wonderful man is patience. My dad is the most patient person on earth.
Yeah.
And I never knew that that virtue would have to travel with me in business. Because you see, in business, there's sometimes, you know, invoices can lay unpaid.
Yes.
There's sometimes you have to be patient with staff or service providers and not lose it. So that's something that I also learned from them. And then also another thing is, I quite remember I was still quite young, and I saw someone limping, and I asked my mom, why is that person's leg wrong? And she said, no, it is not wrong. That is how it was made. And I just kept wondering, but how come mine can touch the ground and theirs can't? And she explained to me that that's how God made them. And she told me, no matter what, never laugh at such. I was not laughing, but she said, never laugh, never even point at it. So you see, it was that compassion for other people's trials that also was also placed in us as their children. Yeah.
Interesting. So having grown with this particular influence and parents who were very supportive in terms of your gifts, you ended up getting into the corporate world. How was that particular experience for you? And because primarily, how was that experience for you before you eventually jump into the entrepreneurship world?
You know, my corporate experience actually started when I was quite young. I was 17.
Oh.
So I got a job with a state department. And they entrusted me with operations of a certain place, but I could not do a lot of hours because it would be considered child labor. So you're just
less
like,
than 18.
So you're just supposed to like do some, you know, hours and then you're paid for it. And so that helped me learn how to do cash management and also personal relations. Then through that, I transitioned into corporate finance internship at Banco Santander. It used to be called Sovereign Bank. They took us while we're quite young. So you're still in university at the point when you're doing both? Yeah, now I was transitioning into university as well.
All right. So you're working while in university?
Yes, because I think it helps beef up the resume, but also it helps to polish up the professional etiquette required. So it's like you're preponing your professional preparedness. So I figured that working while doing an internship while doing the early stages of university would help to, you know, hone my professional etiquette or, you know, how to blend in with a corporate setting. And the good thing with that bank is they transitioned us across various departments, from risk all the way to, let's say, cash handling to risk handling.
That they exposed you quite early.
Yes, so they take you to retail bank, they take you to the corporate side, they take you to the sales side, so that you get to understand that a bank is just not about receiving money and giving it out. There are risk components and other things. And then after that, I just decided to focus on school. So in between, I would let's say take another internship, but during summer. So I managed to get something with the Department of Justice, but now the Equal Opportunity Employment. So that helped me a lot in terms of legal, reviewing things in terms of legal papers, doing legal submissions, because for some weird reason I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to veer off and become a lawyer, a securities lawyer. Then I don't know why I had a change of heart, but I think it's God. Because now it came to the point of doing the graduate submissions. And I just found myself applying to schools outside of the United States continent, the North American continent. I don't know why. So I did look into the UK, and I ended up there. So obviously UK, you can't just find yourself working. But that was like work. I really admired that because the weird thing is we're still in school and they bring all these investment banks. They'll bring the UBS, JP Morgan. They come to recruit you from then and there.
From the university.
From the university, yes. So we had not even graduated and I already had an offer from an Australian mining company. Then I just asked myself, like, what am I going to do in Australia? Not that Australia is a bad place, but I was asking myself, what am I going to do in Australia? So I found myself back to my family, and then I got another corporate job. Then in between everything, I found myself, there's a company that just wrote, this company in Kenya once is looking for this and this, and they only need, I think, 2 people. So I just threw in my credentials, and before you know it, I was in Kenya. So I thrived in that environment because the international experience helped.
Yeah.
But I really liked it, that experience, because you know why? Every other time you finish with this bank, you go to a county government, you go to here. So your experience is multifaceted.
Yeah.
You find yourself maybe handling a job for like United Nations or something else, and you're doing strategy papers for different for a medical field, something in the medical field.
Yeah.
So it exposed me to, like, you get industry snapshots across.
And before we wind up on the first part of the show, from your, because you got exposed quite early, you started working out quite early, what are some of the lessons that you can see that being in corporate before getting into entrepreneurship that you actually say when you look back, it's like you're grateful for it? Because most of the people always want to say, I just want to go into entrepreneurship, but your path literally led you into corporate, what's it called? You worked for different international organizations. How important was that particular experience before now jumping into business?
That experience is just invaluable because like, I can give you the example of a bank. You know, I got to learn, like, you know, yeah, you receive money as a bank, but you also have to protect it so that, like, there are no leakages, no losses. So also the professional persona needed, you know, because when you're an entrepreneur, it depends on the kind of fundraising route you're going to take. Maybe it will be the debt route, or it could be the venture capital. Now, if you're going to approach an investor, for example, we're going to look at, let's say, like, how you dressed, how you carrying yourself, how you even, you know, are you confident even in your idea in the first place? And if I give you my money, how are you going to manage it? Do you have exposure around risks to do with money? Or are you going to get it and then go and hire like a million people in one short phase and then post on Facebook, you're
successful.
Yeah. You're successful.
Yeah.
So that corporate experience is still invaluable. I don't know how it's worked for others, but for me, it has helped in terms of having that back view that I've seen how they run other companies. Even the experience with the company I had in Kenya, you would see how they build things into projects. Even a paper clip would be built into a particular project. So you minimize wastage, because it was actually a big 4 accounting firm. And your accountants are shrewd with money.
Yeah, everything has to be accounted for.
So you get to learn how to also manage that aspect of your business.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So on that particular point, or rather note, you're going to take a short, what's it called, break from this part of the show, and then next week you're going to be finding out how exactly did Fava Hub come to be. How is that particular transition from the corporate world into entrepreneurship? We're going to be finding out about all that. Until next time, I'll see you right here on the Late Night Business.